Again, hello everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Ofer Schreiber. I'm a partner here in Wild Ventures. We're a VC firm operating since 2007. We have offices in Silicon Valley and in Tel Aviv, Israel. And as Ronen mentioned, we focus solely on Israeli cybersecurity investments. We invest in early stages, so at seed stage as early as possible. And we try to help our companies grow and expand globally. So as part of what we're doing, we're collecting a lot of data and a lot of information about the Israeli cybersecurity industry. And over the next 10 minutes, I would like to share with you some of the stats and the data that we collected last year. So every year we are publishing an annual report about the Israeli cybersecurity industry. We call it State of Cyber Nation. Israel is known to be startup nation. From our perspective, we call it Cyber Nation. And as Ronen mentioned, and I'm sure that you know, Israel is considered probably one of the best places for cybersecurity innovation, cybersecurity talent, and of course cybersecurity companies. And so I would like to kind of walk you through the slide and share with you some of the interesting statistics that we've been collecting throughout the years. I'm sure that they will provide great insights to the state of the Israeli cybersecurity ecosystem and the opportunities that it has. As a side note, this data is from last year, from 2021. Obviously, there are a lot of uncertainty these days in the market. So it will be very interesting to see the data next year. But 2021 was a peak year for Israeli cybersecurity. And we will see here from the data. So let's start from the top left corner. We are focusing on seed stage investments. So counterintuitively, the number of new cybersecurity companies that are being formed in Israel is not increasing. You can see that in 2018, for example, 66 new companies were born in Israel, and the numbers are not increasing. And actually, in 2021, there were 58 new cybersecurity companies being formed in Israel. I think there are several reasons for that, why we don't see an increase in the total number of startups. I think that the main reason is that the table stakes are just higher. It is more difficult to start a new cybersecurity company, and we see more experienced entrepreneurs. There's a lot more capital, a lot more competition in the world, in the cybersecurity world, globally. And while we don't see an increase in the total number of new companies, we do see an increase in the quality of the entrepreneurs and the quality of the companies. And we will get to that. I think that there are a few supporting data points for that. So moving from total number of new startups to average seed rounds. And as you can see here, a very sharp increase in the amount of capital that each startup is raising at the seed stage. So if a few years ago, only 3 years ago, the average seed round for an Israeli cybersecurity company was $3.6 million, in 2021, the average seed round was $7 million, twice as much over a period of 3 years. Again, there are several reasons for that. One of the main reasons is that it just became more expensive to start a new company. Salaries and so on increased quite significantly in the past few years. But I think that there is a deeper reason for that. I think that, as I mentioned before, the quality of entrepreneurs kept increasing over time. Everybody wants to build category-leading cybersecurity companies. And it takes a lot of capital to do that. And very ambitious entrepreneurs want to start as fast as possible from day one, and they raise more and more capital and progress and build their companies faster than before. So more ambitious entrepreneurs, more ambitious companies, growing more rapidly, trying to really become multi-billion-dollar, the next multi-billion-dollar company coming out of Israel. And you can see that the total amount of funding that the Israeli cybersecurity ecosystem is attracting has grown quite significantly. If you look a little bit below that, funding trends, you can see that in 2021 there were 135 funding rounds for Israeli cybersecurity companies, and this is across all stages from seed, A, B, growth, etc. And you can see that the total amount of capital that was poured to the Israeli cybersecurity ecosystem almost quadrupled. So in 2020, the total amount of capital that Israeli cybersecurity companies raised was $2.7 billion. In 2021, that number skyrocketed to $8.8 billion. An interesting observation is that the vast majority of that capital was invested by non-Israeli investors, mostly US-based venture firms. But as an Israeli, when you look at the strength of the local ecosystem and the ability to attract external capital, I think that the cybersecurity market really proved to be one of the cornerstones of the Israeli tech industry in general. So a lot of capital is being poured to the Israeli cybersecurity ecosystem, and Israeli companies are growing quite significantly. These days, I think that unicorns is almost like something that you don't want to mention, but in 2021, we've seen an increase in the number of unicorns in the Israeli cybersecurity ecosystem. The unicorn is a private company that is valued more than $1 billion. So comparing 2021 to 2020, so in 2020, there were 5 new unicorns being born in the Israeli cybersecurity ecosystem. And it took an average 5.2 years for a company to reach that unicorn status. Last year, 2021, 9 new unicorns were born. But I think the more interesting figure is that it took these companies on average 4 years to reach that status. So we see more and more billion-dollar valued companies in the Israeli cybersecurity world. And it takes these companies less time to reach that valuation. So I think it is tied up to what we've seen earlier about entrepreneurs are being much more aggressive from the early days, raising more capital, growing more rapidly, and in turn reaching very high valuations faster than before. It will be interesting to see what the next couple of years will bring. Obviously, a lot of uncertainty in the capital markets. Funding environment is changing. Some people saying that it's slowing down, freezing. But according to 2021, that was a really strong year for Israeli cybersecurity companies. And on the right side of the screen, we mentioned here a few examples. A few examples on the top of significant funding rounds. Significant funding rounds or companies that raised hundreds of millions of dollars during 2021. All of these companies are unicorns and above, so all of these companies are valued more than $1 billion. And you can see some interesting trends here, such as you can see a couple of cloud security companies like Orca and Wiz. You can see some companies that are focused on IoT, such as Armis and Axonius, and even a blockchain security company here, Fireblocks. So quite a diverse group. And on the bottom right, we've mentioned here the notable exits from 2021, some acquisitions that happened last year. And again, we see here a group that is quite diverse. IoT security, you have 2 companies here Medigate, which focused on medical devices security, and Vidu, which was more kind of a general IoT security company. So quite diverse also in terms of significant funding rounds and acquisitions. On the top and the bottom left side of the screen, we mentioned some hot categories within the cybersecurity world, and I think this is not a surprise. So, cloud security, application security, vulnerability management. These three areas were the key focus, both for entrepreneurs and for investors. And I think that in general, the cybersecurity industry always follows the big trends in the technological world, in the IT world. So as more and more companies migrate to the cloud, it makes sense that cloud security becomes very important in the security stack of large organizations. And in turn, you see a lot of entrepreneurs try to focus and innovate in that space. Application security is not surprising as well. More and more companies are becoming software companies. Developing software, developing applications become core competency and key differentiation for many companies, and as such, the right security measurements should be in place. And everything regarding vulnerability and risk management, I think that you will hear later today from some of the entrepreneurs. The attack surface of companies keeps increasing as companies are moving to the cloud, are becoming more and more connected, using IoT, mobile devices. Recently with work from home, remote access, the attack surface just keeps increasing and keeps changing over time. And so you need to manage all vulnerabilities, quantify risk, and take the right actions. And this is everything around that space. And the last field that we've seen a lot of interest is around data security and privacy. So this is, again, a hot topic as companies generate more and more data. They're collecting a lot of data of their users, and so they have to protect it in a more advanced way. Obviously, most hackers, especially the ones that are kind of commercially or financially driven, are after personal data they can monetize themselves. So organizations need to protect the data that they store, and of course, with an adjacent problem space is everything related to privacy. So regulations like the European GDPR and other privacy regulations that are taking place in almost any geography around the world, that requires organizations to pay attention to it and invest in the right technological stack in order to protect sensitive data and secure it and adhere to all those regulations. And the last thing that I would like to say about the Israeli cybersecurity ecosystem, you can see at the bottom statistics about funding trends in all stages, from seed to growth. And as I started my presentation, I said that Israeli cybersecurity entrepreneurs are stronger, more ambitious, want to build big companies. They're not looking for early exits. They're not interested in selling their companies. They are truly interested to build category-leading, multi-billion-dollar companies. And investors are trying to do the same. And that turns the Israeli ecosystem to be a bit polarized. So we see more and more capital being poured in early stages and in growth stages as well. Everybody wants to start strong and build big companies. And of course, if I'm trying to kind of think ahead what the next couple of years will bring, obviously not all companies would be successful. That's just the harsh truth of the startup world. So I think that what we are going to see in the Israeli cybersecurity ecosystem, we will see more unicorns, more multi-billion-dollar companies coming out of Israel, more than before. That's for sure. And in parallel, we will see some companies that will not be able to make it. That's just the reality. But looking at it from an external point of view, I think that the Israeli cybersecurity ecosystem is maturing, it's growing, and there is a lot of innovation, a lot of very interesting companies, and I think that the Israeli entrepreneurs have that quality to focus on the biggest problems and the biggest challenges within the global cybersecurity industry. And so we are very bullish on the Israeli cybersecurity ecosystem. We keep investing in more startups. As Ronen mentioned, we announced our fifth fund, $400 million, focused only on Israeli cybersecurity. And we believe and hope that we'll be part of that growth.